Hi, happy Thursday. I see you posted your discussion. It looked great. I will be responding to that after this lecture. I hope everything's going well and that you have already taken a look at your assignment and assessment. Again, I haven't received an email from you to let me know when you can meet me for lectures. It's really important because the remainder of the next few weeks will be all about going over your portfolio and looking at your designs and me helping you create the best portfolio you can based on the work you have and assigning new work if you have holes in your portfolio that need to be filled. So please let me know when you are able to actually meet with me. I can rearrange my schedule to meet yours. So just let me know the days and times that you're available so that we can find a time that we can get together and really discuss your portfolio. Today, we are going to be talking about building your resume. We're going to talk about making it stand out, making it unique. We're going to talk about designing it because you are in a design field and a professional resume is not going to get much attention. You need a professionally designed resume. Your resume should show off your UI and UL skills. That's what's going to make you stand out. That's what's going to get attention and get you hired for the job. Being a web designer and seeking a position in the field requires that you have an extremely well-designed resume. Your resume should seek a balance between clarity and creativeness. Your eye for detail and expertise in a wide range of design elements need to be on show. You need to be showing those off and they should grab attention. Because that's what's going to really make a potential employer go, oh yeah, we want to hire her. She's good. She's got skills. The majority of resumes do not reflect the actual personality behind the document, as they're not necessarily a personal reflection of you. They are a reflection of who you are as a web designer. And there's a big difference there. And you want to be unique. You don't want to use the same old phrases that everyone else is using. You want to draw attention to yourself because that's how you get hired, especially in a creative field. Ordinary, boring, standard resumes, they're not going to do anything to help you. And they're not going to help the manager or consultant make a decision and choose the best applicant for the position because you're not standing out. A resume that carefully matches the experience and abilities that you have and that the employer wants and uses action words and gives tangible examples will break you out of the pack and make you get noticed. And that's what you want because that's what gets you hired. You can use a simple resume as an outline to make sure you include the important information, but your resume should be customized and it should be creative. The things that you definitely want on your resume are your contact details, your name, phone number, email, portfolio, web address, your Spark page if you have one, that sort of thing. You want to supply the standard information here with an updated phone number, an address, and an email that you check often on your resume. And then, of course, your objectives. This is a great place for your elevator speech. You customize it to fit the company. You're going to write an objective, which is a good match for the position you're after. Make it short and precise. For example, you could write something similar to this. To obtain a challenging position as a web designer with a dynamic company. With such a big spotlight on UI UX web design, doing an about me instead of an objectives section could also be a plus. This is where you would place your elevator speech and then customize it to fit your objective so that it becomes personal to the company you're applying to. Something like, let's see, something like, I'm very passionate about helping others build relationships with their audience through internet and social media. When I'm not helping others craft their perfect website, animated advertisement, or social media post, you can catch me at my local park burning off calories, relaxing under a tree with a great ebook, or sketching my surroundings. My ultimate goal is to utilize my web and graphic design skills for a dynamic company such as yours. Something like that. And then, of course, you also want to list your experience. And there's some key words that you need to make sure in your resume. Lead a team in design, led a team in designing, installed, administered, responsible for. Those are all key words that will really stand out to potential employers when it comes to web design. You can write a bulleted list of action statements that give a compelling impression of your abilities and strengths. And you need to ask yourself questions about any problems that you may have solved or any situations where you did something over and above your required duties. Write about these, and you will create a very favorable reaction in the reader. It's going to make them remember you. Statements which start with ideas like these keywords are essential for a successful web design resume. So go through your stuff. And there are even things that you think are mundane tasks that nobody would be interested in. If worded correctly, they're not so mundane anymore. And you can add these keywords in front of them. And suddenly, it's not just a mundane task anymore. It's something you are responsible for, which shows you are a responsible employee because you completed these tasks. That sort of thing. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Education. You want to include your certification in a subsection. Keep that in mind. So you got your bachelor's degree or your master's degree or your associate's degree, in your case, your bachelor's degree. If you have certificates to go with that, then you want to list them in a subsection. It's always important to note your academic qualifications, and these are certainly of interest to the employer. They can be written with your highest qualifications first, with the institution in the year it was included. You always want to list your college education before you list any certificates or licenses or anything like that. Then, of course, you want to display your additional information, like your proficiencies in HTML, CSS, PHP, ASP.NET, JavaScript, jQuery, C++ if you have any, or JSON or AngularJS. You want to make sure, or Ajax, all of that. You want to list your proficiencies somewhere on your resume. Your professional organizations or places that you volunteered at. This is where you're able to include the supplementary details, which will give extra insight into your abilities in ways that you can add to the company. You can place details of extra training courses that you've attended, memberships to the community or professional organization, volunteer positions that you may hold. Keywords that concern web design resumes should be included regularly in your document. You can research these in job descriptions and advertisements. Have you taken a look at the job postings for web designers lately? Well, pull those up because it will give you lists of what they're looking for. And you want to make sure you take those keywords from their lists and use them in your resume. And yes, that means before you apply for a job and you found that job listing, look at those keywords, pull up your resume and make edits where you need to, so you make sure you include the aspects that they are looking for in your resume. Because when they start seeing those keywords that they used in the job posting in your resume, you've become an instant candidate for the job, because you've got exactly what they're looking for. So you have to edit your resume quite frequently until you get that job that you're after. Normally, I mean, I will be quite honest with you, for the most part, it's rare that you get hired the first place you apply. Sometimes it happens. I mean, it's not like it never happens, but that's really not the norm. Usually it takes a couple of times because you have to get comfortable with that interview process. You have to get comfortable and tweak your resume and your portfolio, because you learn little tricks every time you go to interview. Because anytime you're interviewing for a creative field, the person interviewing you, they're very honest, and they will give you helpful advice, like, you know, I really wished you'd had more of this in your portfolio, or I would have liked to have seen something like this in your portfolio. Those are all kind of things that you need to take note of. And when that interview is over, you need to go back to your portfolio and create those things that employer was asking for, because the odds are, if they were looking for those certain things, then the next person you interview with is also going to be looking for those things. And the type of things that go into a web design portfolio, there is a standard, and that's what we are shooting for. But every single location throughout the country has their own trends, their own specific area that they really concentrate in. And those are things that we don't know because we don't live in your area. Those are things that you're going to find out as you do interviewing and things like that. And because they're going to tell you, wish I would have seen, or I'd have liked to have seen something that had this in your portfolio, or just little phrases like that that will help you determine what you need to improve on. And if they don't just outright offer that advice, and 9 times out of 10 they will, because they're in a creative field, it's what they do. But if they don't, when you get to the end of the interview and they've essentially told you that, you know, they don't feel like you're right for the position, or you don't have enough experience, or whatever the case may be, then ask them what you can do to improve your chances of being hired. Ask them specifically, is there something you would have liked to have seen in my portfolio that's not currently there? Is there a skill that I haven't listed on my resume that I need? And they will give you that information. And that only makes it better for you when it comes to interviewing for the next job, because you're even more prepared. Let's take a look at a few example web design resumes. That's what these are. These are examples of web design resumes you can get on Google. And in the search bar, type in web design resumes. Hit enter. And when the search comes up at the top, just click on the little images link, and it will show you a ton of web design resumes. But I want you to notice, as we go through here, I want you looking at the common factors of all of these. Not only the different symbols and things like that, but look at the format. What does it resemble? This is our first example. They've done a great job. It's very clean. And I wouldn't say that this is necessarily so much on the creative side so much. It is creative, definitely, but it's not over the top creative, I guess is what you would say. It's definitely creative. And what's it look like? It looks like a website, doesn't it? You've got your whole header. You've got a nice little navigation bar going on up there. And you've got your contact. It still has contact information. It has the about me where you could put your elevator speech. And he lists his experience and his education. And he's shown off his skills using graphs, icons, little things like that. That is the key and the biggest difference between a creative field resume and a professional resume. There are a lot of icons being used, a lot of infographics, that sort of thing. And that's what makes you stand out. You are a web designer. You will be using icons and infographics a lot because you see them all over the web, and that's what you're designing. So use them on your resume. Show those skills off. This is the second example. Again, he kind of put a little bit of humor in his resume, but again, it has this is more of the professional side, I think, is what I see here. It's all laid out nice, and it's creative, definitely. He's thrown a little bit of humor in there, but I think this is still more on the professional side, and it's kind of a choice. Again, you are reflected in your resume as to what kind of web designer you are and that sort of thing. So your resume should kind of show that, and everyone has their own kind of design skills. Some of us design very professionally, some of us design very abstract, and some of us are kind of on the in-between. I would say the top one is on the in-between. This one is the very professional side. But again, if you notice his softwares and skills, he's done a little infographic type thing down there. It's not the great. I would not say, this is not a resume that I would do for myself. I'm a little more creative than this. I'm not over the top, abstract kind of a designer. I can design that way, but on the normal basis, that is not where my creative thoughts go. But I am definitely a little more creative than this. So let's look at example 3. This is another one that is the in-between. I wouldn't say this is over the top. It's definitely more creative than the example number 1. This is something more along the lines of something I would come up with. But as you can see here, again, this kind of has the look of a website. And you can see he did his about me, his education. He even has an objective up there. His contact information is in the very center. His experience is listed, his skills. And you can see there's some icons and infographic type icons going on this resume as well. That's the kind of thing that you're aiming for. And then we have example 4. This is definitely still professional, but we are definitely have some creative aspects going on here. You can see he's definitely got some creative skills. I would bet that he's very good with typography and things like that. He's very, very good with layout design. And that's not a bad thing to have when you're a web designer. That's a very good thing to have because that's what you're doing. You're doing layout design all day long. So he does his work experience, his education, and then you can see his skills at the bottom. And he's done them in an infographic type way. It's almost like the star system. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can have up to 5 stars. And he's done them in circles instead of stars, but it's the same sort of method. And he's rated himself. on where his skill level is for each one of those. Example 5 is definitely creative. We are definitely in the middle here too. And he has taken a very friendly approach. You've got your talk bubble up there that says hi. He has taken a very down-to-earth, friendly kind of approach to his resume. And he has a personal statement, which is like the about me, his elevator speech in there. His contact information is all at the top. And you see all these icons and infographics that are throughout his resume. I would guarantee you he has some very good UI skills, which of course leads to a very good UX design. Undoubtedly, he has those skills. There's no question about that. I can see that from his resume. He has some very strong UI skills. So if I was hiring for a company that was doing web design and we really, really specialized in the UI end of things, and I needed to hire someone that had some really strong UI skills, because the projects we were working on really need someone that can concentrate on that aspect in our web design team. We need someone that really concentrates on the UI of the website. He would definitely be a candidate. He would go into my, yep, let's interview him basket. Because looking at his resume tells me he has some UI skills. Those are the kind of things you need to show off, your UI, your UX skills. And you can do that in a lot of ways. This is an excellent way of doing it. Again, you can see that he shows his skills in a bar graph, which is great. He's a little more personal than in his resume than I necessarily would be. I mean, he has a section for, I believe in work-play balance. That's probably not something that I would include in my resume, but the way he has designed the resume itself is awesome. And he even has a section that says why we should work together. And this is where his experience comes in. This is basically the section where he's listed or hinted about his experience. And then we have 6. Again, here's another great example of UI skills. And some great examples of some typography skills. They have their objectives and they have their education done in a timeline. A very infographic approach going on here. Their education is listed in a timeline. Their skills, you notice those skills. Their skills are listed using loading bars. Those are the graphics for loading bars. When we're waiting on a website to load, we get that little bar. That is an awesome idea. It's a great approach. It's very creative. Pulling those web design skills, those web design graphics and icons and the things you use or expect on a website and being able to implement them in your resume truly shows off not only your UI and UX skills, but it also shows off that you have a very, very solid understanding of web design. Because you've used things that you normally see on the web on a piece of paper in your resume. So you must have a very solid understanding of the elements of web design. Those are the things that you want to make sure that your employer is seeing in your resume. You want them to be able to look at it and instantly know that she's got UI UX skills. She's got a very good understanding of web design. She's used loading bars for her skills, or she's used a spinning wheel to show as an icon for her about section, or there are all kinds of ways that you could get creative with a little hourglasses and things like that. There are a ton of ways you could get creative with using the elements that you see on the web in your resume. But undoubtedly, you want to use icons because those are a must. We see them on every single website we visit. You want to use infographics because you are going to be building them. As a web designer, you will be creating infographics to show things on a website. Whether it means just generating an application where customers can rate things based on a star system, that is still essentially an infographic. You're just giving them the power to decide how many stars. But it still gets displayed as an infographic. And that is you. You are the one that creates that and codes that application so that it will do that and display the way you want it to. So again, be creative with your resume. You do not want to apply for a web design position using a business resume. It's not going to get you noticed. Most likely, it won't even get you called in for an interview, no matter what is listed on that resume. Because this is a creative industry. So your resume needs to reflect you as a designer. It needs to show, if not all, at least some of your creativeness. So go to Google and do a search for web design resumes and look at the examples and get some inspiration. Take the things that you like most off all of them that you see and find a way to work them into your resume or come up with a completely original idea. There's nothing that says you can't look at an example of a resume and take something that you really like from that resume and use it in your resume the way that you need it to be used. Got a timeline of education. Well, if she's got a lot of education there, she showed her certificates and associates, and some of her, she had a creative manager job that she put on that timeline too. I mean, she's probably, and people would put their certificates, things like that on there as well. So if you have a lot of that, if you've gotten a lot of like lynda.com certificates or W3C certificates or things like that, then doing some sort of timeline type thing on your resume would look really neat and it would get attention. Otherwise, find another kind of creative way to list your education. And maybe it's just simply you added some extra details like we see in this resume. It's not so much that the only thing that he was really infographic creative with was his skills and his work-play balance. Otherwise, everything else is just listed in the standard way you would on a business resume, but he has added the extra elements to each section so that it looks designed, the plus signs, the little line that looks like a heartbeat monitor going up, and that's basically poking out and giving emphasis to the date. Things like that. He's added those extra little elements that really pull everything together and make it look creative, even though the format of each section is technically a business format. And all of these, I mean, technically, I mean, the format of the section itself, all of these are very business-like. The difference is they've added the extra elements to make it look designed. And that's the key right there. It's adding the extra elements so that the resume is designed. and it's creative and it reflects who you are as a designer. So have fun with it. Play with it. Come up with a few different ideas. And once you submit it, if you want to submit more than one example, absolutely go for it. I'll tell you which one I think is the best. And if there's something that you can do to it that I think will make it better, I'm going to give you that feedback. That's what I'm here for this month. So have fun creating your resume and definitely be creative with it. Okay, well, that is the end of our lecture. That's all I have for today since I haven't been able to meet with you this week. Normally, we would be already going through your portfolio and making a plan for the things that I think you need to add or change in your portfolio. But since we haven't had the opportunity to do that, we've had some short lectures this week. So hopefully you can email me and let me know when we can get together so that we can go through your portfolio and stuff next week. So until I hear from you, I will see you next week.